Hello everyone. In this exercise, we will do a lab for creating bind mount and volumes and see how we will be able to use bind mount and volumes inside the container. I have the Docker desktop installed. If I click on the containers, I don't see any containers which are running currently. If I click on images, I have downloaded some of the images from up.docker.com, and one of the images I have created using Docker file, Docker build, and there are no volumes, and these are the build command which I have run. So if I wanted to create a bind mount, first let us create a container without using the bind mount and see how it works. I'll pull the image from the up.docker.com. This will be nginx image. So I'll start creating a container using nginx image. I will use the command to create the container. I will use docker run -d, and name of the container should be web01, and I wanted to use the port of 8080 of the host port, and I wanted to map it to the container port of 80. My image will be nginx image. Let us create a container out of nginx image. This is the container which it has created. This is immediately creating because there is an image which already exists. So we have the nginx image which is already there in the local repository. So that is why the docker run command straight away created the container. So if you check here, if you check in the images, you can see the image already exists here. And if I run the command docker ps-a, I can see there is a container which is created with the name as web01. And if I wanted to browse to the container, I can browse using https http then localhost. I can also use 127.0.0.1. This will be the localhost IP address, and 8080. So we can see that Nginx web server or proxy server is already running. I will connect to the container using docker exe command -it, and will connect to web01, say bin bash. I am into the container. If I use the ls command, ls-ltr, the file, the default web page, what you are seeing, this particular page, it is available in cd slash user slash share nginx and html. So this is the location where we have this particular default web page for the nginx. So this we are seeing because there is a page which is already created in the default folder. So this is the default folder location. If I say ls, then we have this index.html page. If I cat index.html page, so this is the default website for the nginx. So whatever we have syntax here, so this is the HTML syntax what we are going to see in the Chrome browser. I don't want to use this particular default website which is there in the container. What if the container is removed? Definitely the data will not be available. If the container is stopped, then we can assume then definitely the data will be there. But the container, if it is removed, definitely the data will be lost. I want to make the data to be persisted. So for that particular case, what I will do is I wanted to mount a particular folder which I am going to create inside my host and mount to the container. Even if the container fails or the container is removed, the data will be available in my host directory or host file system directory. Using that, I'll be able to create another container and mount the same directory to the new container which I am going to create. So what I will do is I'll create another folder here. I will create a folder by name data, and inside this folder I will also create one more folder called, I will use the folder name as bind mount. So this is my working directory. This is my working directory which is lab02, and I have created a folder data. Under data I have created another folder by name bind mount, which I am going to bind or which I am going to mount inside the container. So let us do the exercise to bind the file system inside the container. I will exit out of the container, and now I am totally out of the container. I will clear the screen. So now what I will do is I will create another container with another container name using bind mount syntax. So to use the bind mount syntax, I will use docker run -d, and I will use the name web02. Web01 I have already used for another container, so I am using web02, and this will be my syntax to bind the volumes. So we can use -v to bind the storage volumes and also to bind the bind mount volumes. So what I will do is I will copy the complete absolute path of the folder, and this is my path. So this doesn't work because this is in the Windows format. So for that I have to change the slash. I have to use the forward slash, and I have to start with forward slash slash d. So this is how you will represent the Windows file system inside the container for bind mount. If you are running the Linux operating system, then you can use the absolute path without changing any slash. You can use the absolute path straight away. And this is the location of the local host. So this particular folder, so this is my local host folder on Windows, which I am going to use to bind the folder inside the container. And where exactly I wanted to bind? I wanted to bind to the file system inside the container, which is slash user share and nginx and HTML. So this is where I wanted to mount the local host file system inside the container file system. And I will use the port mapping 8080. I need to use 8081 because I have already used 8080, and for the container I will use 80, and the image will be nginx. There is some problem with this syntax. So basically what I have to do is use syntax like this, and we have the container created. If I use docker ps-a, I can see the container which is there. One of the container which we have created web01 as the default web page for the container. So this is the default web page, and the container which we have mounted with the local host file system with 8081 port number, it doesn't have any file because we have already mapped the file system with our host file system. Since we have mounted a folder from the host file system to the container file system, what I will do is I will create a file with the default web page for the Nginx. I will create a file, create a particular file. I will open this particular file. I will say as index.html page. I will save this. I will open this particular file and write some text. I will open with the notepad. I will write some text. Hello, hello everyone. This is Morpheus. Welcome to Docker. I will save this particular file, and this file is saved. If I go to the command prompt, still I am in the local file system itself. If I enter directory, I'll go to data and dir. I have another directory, mount dir. Okay. Now, if I cat the index.html, so this is the file which we have modified inside the host file system. If I connect to the container, this file should be available inside the container itself. Docker ps-a, and if I connect to the container, docker exec -it, and I wanted to specify the container name web02. I will use bin bash to get to the command prompt, cd slash user slash share and nginx html. So this is where we have mounted the file system of our local host. If I use ls and whatever files we have created, I simply created two files, new text. It doesn't have any data. Index.html, we have updated some data here. If I cat index.html, we should be able to see the content, whatever we have updated inside our host file system. The same files, whatever we have in our host file system, that is being reflected inside the container. So this is the container. So this basically is the container file system. If I go to pwd, you can see this is the container. And if I say df-h, you can see there is a file system which has been mounted with d colon. And this is the directory which we have mounted from our host file system to the container file system. And if I use the browser and refresh, I should be able to see the content whatever I have modified. So this we have modified and this content is available. So basically I am persisting the data by keeping all my content inside shared storage or inside the local host where my data is redundant. And if I even if I remove the container, let us say if I exit and if I docker stop web02, so web02 has been stopped now, and I will use docker ps dash a, and we have exited one of the container. I will remove the container docker rm v8 docker yes dash a. Now there is only one container, but still we have the data available. Even if the container is not running, or it has been killed, it has been removed, we have our data. So what if I wanted to use the same data again? I'll mount the same file system to another container. So let us create a container using the same host file system, attach the same file system as the bind mount to the container. I'll use the command again, docker run dash d, and name of the container I will use web02, which we have deleted, and I will use the bind mount syntax. So this time what I will do is I will let us check if we should be able to copy and paste the syntax right away. And instead of changing the forward slash, let us see if it works. And I wanted to I wanted to map it to the file system of the container. File system of the container is user and share nginx html, and the port which I wanted to use is 8081 mapped to container port 80. Nginx is the image name. If I press enter, okay, yes, perfect. So it has taken the same absolute path of the Windows file system, and if I use docker ps dash a, we can see there's a container which is created. Let us see if the file system is being mounted inside the container. I will use docker exec dash it and web02 bin dash bash. We are inside the container file system. If I use pwd, I am inside the root file system of the container. I will change to cd user share nginx, then html. So here we should be able to see the files what we have created inside the local file system. So these files are being reflected inside the container, and if I use df dash h, yes, we are able to see the host file system is mounted as per our syntax. So this is the host file system, and we are able to mount to the container file system. So this is the container file system, this is the host file system, and with the Windows file system syntax, absolute path syntax, we are able to mount it without any issues. So definitely this is a good thing which is working. And if I browse for 8081, I'll refresh 127.0.8081. Yes, we are able to see the, so we are able to see the content whatever we have updated inside the local file system. So this is the file which we have updated, and this has the, this is the website which is there in the container, which is running inside the container. So perfectly fine. So this is how we will be able to use the bind mount to make our data persist, and we can create multiple containers and share the same location. So this location, so whatever location we are seeing here, this location can be shared to multiple containers. If any of the container fails or any of the containers are deleted, there is no issues. Another container will be available to access the website. And if I am using Kubernetes or if I am using some kind of cloud Kubernetes services, then definitely there will be a high availability wherein we can have multiple containers having the same persisted data which will be stored on any high availability storage.